This program is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Hello there and welcome to Business Daily on Trust Television, and we are set to bring you factual analysis and updates from the straits of business, finance, economy and the stock market. I am Christiana Amodu Otinya. Thank you for joining on the program. First, we'll kickstart from the headlines. Beginning from issues around the budget implementation, federal government of Nigeria records 14.28 trillion naira revenue shortfall. And internally generated revenue, Murtala Mohammed International Airport Customs rakes in 20.9 billion naira in 12 months. We'll get to hear more on that in the business roundup segment of the program. I'll take a short break. When we return, time to go into the stock market. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's get straight into the stock market and see what the sentiment is like. We'll begin from the local bus in Nigeria, where we saw a marginal positive close for the local bus on Customs Street, talking about the Nigerian exchange, up 0.02%, 52,626.42. Now, on the activity chart, a total volume of 129.04 million shares, valued at 1.82 billion naira, change hands in 3,183 deals on the floor of the local exchange. The equity cap settled at 28.66 trillion naira. Now, there's a lot of expectations, especially for the stock market. Inflation numbers came out this week, and a lot of data for the markets to take in. Let's go over now to other markets in Africa. Now we're seeing that the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is hitting the 80,000 mark, as you can see right here, up 0.64%. For Ghana, we are seeing a lower close, a negative decline there, to 0.07% in the negative zone, 2,436. Remember that in Johannesburg, we are still seeing issues around what's happening with the energy crisis, and that is taking front burner position in South Africa. Now let's go over to Wall Street now and see what the sentiment is like. Now it's a mixed close, and the only red we have here is coming from the S&P 500, down 0.76%. For the tech-heavy Nasdaq and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, 0.76% and 0.96% respectively for both indices. Now, it's really the focus really for Wall Street is what are the comments coming out from especially Fed officials as it pertains to the rates, the interest rate in the United States. Of course, inflation is cooling off in the US, in the United Kingdom, in Nigeria. Inflation is easing. Remember, in 2022, inflation was indeed the name of the game, and now we're seeing the inflation numbers begin to taper down, and trust central bankers will also take that into cognizance in making decisions, monetary policy decision. The Swiss bank chief is also making comments at the World Economic Forum, saying that the stance of central bankers was a little bit more expansionary in the year 2022, and he is also alluding to the fact that inflation was the main concern for central banks. Over in the European markets climbed slightly on Friday as traders see a partial recovery from Thursday's sell-off, with the outlook for monetary policy still firmly in focus. The FTSE 100 in the United Kingdom up 0.31%. For the CAC run in France, we are seeing a close, open, I beg your pardon there, 0.23%. And for the German DAX, 0.18% higher, 14,947.52. Now, investors have grown increasingly concerned that the Federal Reserve will continue to hike interest rates despite signs of slowing inflation. Now let's go over to the Asia Pacific region. Markets in Asia Pacific traded higher on Friday as investors digested Japan's inflation data. The nationwide core consumer price index in Japan rose 4% in December on an annualized basis. Now, this is the fastest pace for inflation in Japan since the year 1981. And the Nikkei 225 is up 0.56%, 26,553.53 there. So the concern is still surrounded around inflation and what's the health of the global economy. For mainland China, the Shanghai Composite is up 0.76%, 3,264.81, and the Kospi, the South Korean Kospi, is up 0.63%, 2,395.26. Going over now to the commodities chart. Oil prices climbed on optimism that the United States Federal Reserve will end its tightening cycle, buoying the economy and boosting fuel demand. Now, it is important to state that the dollar index was headed for a second consecutive weekly decline. A weaker dollar makes crude, which is priced in the dollar, the greenback, the currency of the world, safe to say, cheaper for foreign buyers. Brent crude $86.76 per barrel, as you can see from right here, up 0.71%. Definitely a good price. Looking at how Dow trickles down to what the current situation and the current budget benchmark in Nigeria. For the bullion, the yellow metal gold, $1,929 per ounce. We're seeing it slightly negative, 0.12%. Now, gold prices are still holding steady Friday, but they were on track for the fifth consecutive weekly gain as a weaker dollar and hopes of slower U.S. interest rate hikes boosted the safe haven bullion's appeal. Now, with lower interest rate translating into lesser returns on interest-bearing assets like government bonds, investors may prefer zero-yield gold, and that's why we are seeing the gold staying in the bullish run and staying steady at $1,900 mark. For agri-commodities, wheat, cocoa are staying largely in the red. The red arrows there, 0.34% and 1.91% there, down respectively. For palm oil, $3,935 per metric ton, up 1.18%, as you can see from that chart. A lot of times, people, when investors or market experts are saying that the focus for countries like Nigeria should be down this chart as opposed to this commodity right here, because then again you ask yourself, how many $86 do you have to put together to end at $3,000? And Nigeria also is a hub of agricultural commodities. Talking about economic diversification, it has been said that it is a marathon and not a sprint, but experts have called on the government to intensify efforts to ensure that the economy is fully diversified. The finance minister also stated that the Nigerian economy is no longer a mono economy, that we are seeing the non-oil sector do so well, especially in recent times. Let's put our focus now on the cryptocurrency market. The crypto watch, Bitcoin down 0.03%, marginal decline there, 20,938. Ethereum is up 0.31%, still staying around the $1,500 mark, and Binance Coin shedding 1.58%. As you can see there, $287.09. Those are the numbers we have on the program for you today. We have monitored developments in the stock market to culminate in today. However, we'll take this short time and bring you the business roundup. Please take a listen.
The federal government has recorded a revenue shortfall of 14.28 trillion naira under the present administration, according to data from the Budget Office of the Federation. The data was obtained from the budget implementation reports from 2016 to 2022. In the period under review, the federal government projected 43.05 trillion naira as revenue to fund its budget, but made only 28.77 trillion naira, representing 66.83% of expected revenue. The revenue shortfalls echo concerns by the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, over the government's inability to generate adequate revenue. Nigeria relies on oil for the majority of its revenue, and in recent times, this revenue source has been impacted by low production and subsidy payment. The Nigerian Customs Service, Murtala Muhammad International Airport, Lagos Command says it generated 20.9 billion naira between January and December of 2022. The revenue generation was an increase from the 19 billion naira the command earned in 2021. A statement by Juliana Tomo, the spokesperson of the command, said the MMIA Customs had a revenue improvement of over 1.8 billion naira when compared to the previous year. The statement quoted Muhammad Gidado, the Customs Area Controller, as saying that the revenue improvement was made possible due to an improved integrity of passengers in the declaration of goods and high level of compliance towards voluntary payment of courier parcels, as well as passengers accompanied and unaccompanied baggage duty. The statement hinted that this increased performance demonstrates the effectiveness of the strategies that were adopted last year, adding that the command expects an even better performance going forward.
There you have it, a roundup of business stories. On today's edition of the program, we'll be focusing on front row economic issues going on in the country. The CBN has continued on its train of sensitization as the deadline for the old Naira notes knocks on the door. We'll be looking at issues that have come up, especially from officials of the CBN, statements that have been made with regards to the deadline that is just by the corner and issues around the banking system. We'll also be looking at what the private sector is saying as regards to inflation, specifically NASIMA, what they're saying as regards to issues around inflation and also issues around the issuance of the new note. So it promises to be insightful. We'll take a short break. When we return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with us.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130.
Treated a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at England squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back, and thank you for still staying there with us on the program. Remember, I stated during the course of the program today that we will be looking at front row economic issues in the country. Now, the CBN has continued sensitization on the new Naira note, and the deadline that is just by the corner. Our correspondent was on that train, and here's what she brought back.
In order to create awareness as the deadline draws closer, the Central Bank of Nigeria has embarked on a sensitization campaign to educate and encourage Nigerians to deposit their old notes in banks and adopt the new ones. The campaign involved reaching out to traditional rulers as well as religious leaders.
I want to appeal for the extension of the term in order to give room for more awareness, most especially those at the rural area. If that one can be acceptable, I think we will appreciate.
Particularly those in the rural areas, they need to act very fast and very quickly and make sure that they deposit all their old notes so that we don't want them to lose their level of investment. Even though by the new currency, everything is now, more of it will get into the bank.
The Apex Bank also visited some commercial banks to ensure that ATMs were no longer dispensing the old notes. Unfortunately, many banks are still dispensing a mixture of the old and the new notes, an indication that the new notes were low in supply.
They say on the 31st of this month is going to expire, so I don't know why they are still giving us this. This is what I always get, as you can see.
I don't come here today almost 4 times. This is what I'm getting. Even I complain here. Nobody, same bank? The same bank, see, it's the same ATM. So I complain that we are giving old notes. My customers are rejecting it. I'm a POS operator.
A bank manager questioned during the unannounced visit stated that they were still dispensing the old notes due to insufficient supply of the new ones, as they were only given 4 million naira worth of the newly redesigned notes. However, a director with the CBN, Abdullahi Abubakar Kure, stated that there is sufficient supply of the new notes on their end and warned that there may be consequences for erring banks.
The new notes are out, but either the banks are not picking it from central bank or the monitoring mechanism will reveal what really happened. Whether they are diversion of the new Naira note to other uses, we don't know. But basically, what we have seen is that some ATMs are dispensing new notes, whereas others are dispensing old notes. So those that are dispensing old notes, we will check our record and see what stock have they gotten from central bank and how they have utilized it. Where there are diversions, obviously we might need to penalize it.
Since the release of the newly redesigned 1,500 and 200 Naira notes back in December 15, 2022, there have been cases of traders rejecting the new notes. But as the deadline for the old notes draws nearer, other businesses are now rejecting the old ones and opting for e-payments, while many Nigerians who say they are yet to see the new notes are asking for an extension of the deadline.
And there you have it, the CBN also encouraging Nigerians to also look at issues around that have come up, especially with regards to the new note, and for Nigerians to also accept the new note. I think I want to also give some perspective, the update, that's an update from Abuja. Let's also look at what the Central Bank of Nigeria is saying in Lagos State. Now, the Director of Legal Services Department of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Kofo Salamalada, also said, and I quote, "I can tell you today that the CBN on daily basis issues out the new notes." And he says, as we speak, banks are with the CBN taking money. We are actually begging banks to come and take money from the Central Bank of Nigeria. We have these new Naira notes in our vaults, and we are begging banks to come and take it. With this update now from the Director of Legal Services, many experts have also tried to look at this situation, especially with regards to the banking sector. The director of legal was really talking tough because there was a lot of Nigerians who were commenting across social media platforms, talking about how they go into the banks to deposit old notes and they go to the ATM machines to try to get monies out, and they are giving old notes again. And that's why we are seeing these comments coming from the Director of Legal Services of the Department of the Central Bank, talking hard on banks to ensure that banks do not become the clog in the wheel of progress, especially with the deadline that the Central Bank of Nigeria has given just by the corner with regards to the phase out of the old notes. Now, another very interesting perspective that have come out of this conversation is from the Director General of the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mining and Agriculture, Shola Obadimu. He is saying on the recent uncertainty surrounding the availability of the new Naira notes ahead of the saying the CBN should have printed 5,000 Naira notes. And economists are saying this might not be the best way to go about it, especially at a time when inflation in the country is currently at 21.34%. Having 5,000 Naira notes come into circulation might not solve the problems that the CBN have put forward, talking about issues around counterfeiting, hoarding of the Naira notes, corruption. The CBN was trying to plug in some of those loopholes while we saw the redesign come into place. And a lot of comments have followed that. But having a 5,000 Naira notes come on board, economists are saying that might not be the best option. My guest, I have Dr. Aliyu Ilyas. He is, of course, joining us virtually now to speak on these issues, the sensitization that is ongoing, the deadline that is just by the corner, and front row issues that have come up, especially as it relates to the new Naira notes. Dr. Aliyu Ilyas, I want to get your comments, especially on the new Naira notes, and tell me what you think, because this journey started sometime in 2022, and here we are again in 2023. Tell me what are your thoughts, especially with recent developments? Okay, it may seem as though we're having a little bit of some technical issues with having Dr. Aliyu Ilyas come on board to get his perspective on the topic we are talking about today. I think we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. Please stay with us.
Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for still staying there with us. Sometimes you plan and the internet develops a mind of its own, and that's some of the challenges that we are having. It boils down to saying how much more we need to do, especially as a country, in terms of getting internet penetration right and getting advanced technology into the country. We were supposed to be joined on the program today by Dr. Aliyu Ilyas and Steve Nwachukwu, both economists, to speak on front row issues in the economy, but we're having some glitch with some technical issues with the internet situation. But the crux of the matter, however, is the fact that the new Naira notes have come to stay, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria, and the general mood in the banking system. If the banks are putting up some kind of wall for Nigerians to have access to the notes, the CBN is saying that has to come to an end. The CBN is actually saying it is going to penalize those banks that their ATMs, their automated teller machines, are still disbursing old notes to Nigerians as the new notes are readily available. And then again, business owners are being implored to accept the new notes. That's where we draw the curtains on the program today. Thank you for always investing your time with us on Business Daily. Don't forget you can catch up on all the news updates on our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. Get on YouTube and punch the subscribe button on Trust TV, and the updates will be at your fingertips. I am Christiana Amodu Otinya. Thank you for joining us, and continue to stay safe. Goodbye for now.
This program is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.